I conducted my ethnographic study at the Lehigh County Humane Society on Dixon Street in South Allentown. My mission coming into this study was to lift the shadow that has been casted over the world of animal shelters, shine light on the truth, and help raise awareness to win the fight against animal abuse and animal neglect. When I first walked through the doors of the Lehigh County Humane Society, I was greeted by the sound of barking dogs and the smell of bleach. The smell was comforting because it showed that the place was well maintained and clean and that the animals weren't living in their own filth. I asked to speak with who was in charge, and I spoke with the manager about my presence and intentions. At first she seemed hesitant to a point where I thought she would decline my request. She took me into a quiet lunchroom where we could discuss more in depth. After a few minutes she granted me permission and my day began. The first spot that I visited was the cat room. There are about 20 to 25 cats, all in separate and spacious cages, all stacked on top of one another, maybe about 4 cages high. One particular cat caught my eye. His tag said his name was LaRue. He was a gray cat with black stripes. I walked over to him and he immediately reached his paw out through his cage asking for attention. I don't think he was being starved of attention, but that he was just so accustomed to people and because of the intimate interaction he has had with the shelter. Along the outside wall of the cat room is where the small dogs are kept. There are about 10 spacious cages, each with one dog in them. The majority of them were energetic and happy, except for one black Pomeranian who was asleep. I didn't stay there long, however, because there was a few families behind me trying to get a look at them, and I didn't want to be the reason that a dog missed out on a possible adoption. I shifted down the hall and to the right to where the medium-sized dogs are being kept. There are about 15 dogs, all in separate pens, with a gate like the ones you'd see on a chain-link fence in a backyard. I noticed that there were about 9 cages with a blue tag on them. I looked, and the tag said, "I'm adopted." This made me happy because I have seen these tags all over the place. I then moved across the building to the large dog room where there are about 20 dogs in large pens. About 99% of the dogs were pit bulls, which wasn't a surprise to me since I was in South Allentown. Roughly 10 of the dogs had a blue tag on their cage. The manager then approached me and asked me how my day was going. I said it was going great, and she asked me if I would like to see something. I gratefully accepted. She took me into a back room behind the front desk, and she took me to 2 cages that both had blankets covering them. She opened one of the cages and pulled out a 3-week-old pit bull puppy. She let me hold her, and I felt that she was giving me a token of trust by letting me handle the dog. All of a sudden, the cage next to the puppy started shaking and growling violently. It was Mama, as the employees called her. I immediately put the puppy back in her cage because I didn't want to stress out the mom. I knew that the shelter held volunteer dog walking on Wednesdays and Fridays, so I asked the manager if it was possible for me to speak with a volunteer. She introduced me to an older gentleman of skinny build with salt and pepper hair and silver glasses. We went outside and sat at a picnic table underneath a tree directly along the dog walking route. He has been with the shelter for 2 years and he walks dogs just out of the goodness of his heart. He said that he has had 2 dogs from this very shelter and that he has never had or knows anybody who has ever had a problem with any animal from this shelter. On my way back into the shelter, I bumped into a volunteer who asked me earlier if I needed any help. This time he was holding a brown and white Chihuahua mix and he was consoling her. I asked him what he was doing, and he said he was rehabilitating the dog to become more comfortable around people. He then moved the dog's face toward his, and she only quickly moved her head away. He said this was a huge improvement because she used to snap at him. This volunteer has been working here since last July, and he also has had 2 dogs from the Lehigh County Humane Society. I went back inside and asked if I could speak with somebody in charge of adoption. I spoke with the adoption supervisor. She told me a few interesting facts about the adoption process, including that once a dog has been adopted, the Humane Society conducts random house checks to ensure that the animal is being well taken care of. I asked her if she has ever had a gut feeling about somebody not being a good owner. She says that it has happened on multiple occasions, and it has prevented people from being able to adopt an animal. This amazed me that the employees not only care about the well-being of the animals, even if after they leave their custody. Little did I know I was about to see the true passion and care that the employees have for all these animals. There was a gray and white pit bull mix on a leash with a volunteer as if he was going for a walk. The manager looked and saw a man coming into the shelter, and she ordered the volunteer to take the dog out through the side door away from the lobby. The man approached the desk and demanded to speak with the person in charge. His tone caught my attention, so I just stood back to the side and watched from a distance. The manager then asked the man what was wrong. The man said that the shelter had his dog, and he wanted her back. The manager asked if he had the paperwork. The man asked what paperwork. The manager said, "I am not giving you her back because you don't have the proof that she is yours." The man became agitated and continued to press on the matter, but the manager stood her ground until the man stormed out. The manager turned and saw that I had witnessed what had just taken place, and she said, "I will never give him his dog back. Do you see that the dog's ears were pinned?" she said. I declined, and she said that is a common side that this dog was used for fighting. I will never put that dog back into a world like that. I am amazed to see the passion that these employees have for these animals and how they will protect them at all costs. Before I left, I asked if I could speak with the manager to recap my day. She took me into her office, a small office, maybe 9 feet by 9 feet, with one cluttered desk. Clearly, she isn't making a lot of money, but that doesn't matter to her. We began talking about my day, and then she said something that made me lose track of everything else in the conversation. She said, end quote, "My goal is to run this place out of business." This struck me because it shows how passionate she is for these animals and how she hopes that one day she doesn't have to do what she does, because that means all the animals in the world are loved and being taken care of properly. The Lehigh County Humane Society has a saying, "A life-saving animal shelter." This quote is displayed on their sign outside as well as on the back of every volunteer shirt. The quote became more than a quote to me by the end of the day. The quote speaks volumes of the truth, and the people of the Lehigh County Humane Society are truly miracle workers and lifesavers. Around 2:41 p.m., I exited the building and drove home, still amazed from what I had just experienced. Upon completion of my study, I began to realize that all the notions and the ideas of animal shelters that the public puts out are completely false. Any facility that's conducted like the Lehigh County Humane Society is a facility that is truly saving animals' lives and restoring families and restoring hope. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.